There are many things that fascinate me when it comes to the Rey movie, that being developed by Lucasfilm for Star Wars, taking the story beyond the sequel trilogy. One of the things that fascinates me is, of course, this does not seem to be exciting the fan base greatly. Not too many people are excited. Also fascinating is the writer's strike and how far this might push the movie out. Are we now looking at a late 2026 or even 27 release? Being delayed is nothing new to Lucasfilm. It seems to be their forte, in fact. And then also, I am intrigued by not only the already shifting writers behind the scene, but in fact the director. Yes, the Rey movie has someone at the helm who is quite the firebrand, and we'll get into it right now. And we're here to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to do so. It is an honor to have each and every one of you here with me. If you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about the notification bell. Today, we're going to be looking at an older article before watching a video interview with the person who is behind the entire operation that is the Rey movie. Now, this article we're starting with is from comingsoon.net, and it's all the way back from April 25th, but there's a reason for going to this. I'll explain in a moment. The title of the article is Rey Skywalker Star Wars Movie Update Gives Production and Casting Timeline by Anthony Nash. And yes, I have enjoyed Anthony Nash's content in the past. Happy to be going back to it for a moment. Stephen Knight is said to be writing the upcoming Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy directed Rey Skywalker Star Wars movie. And by the way, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is the woman who is, she has some spicy opinions to say the least. We'll be talking about her in just a moment. It's going to feature the return of Daisy Ridley. Thanks to a recent report, more information on the film's casting and production timeline has come out. During the latest episode of the Hot Mic podcast, Above the Lines, Jeff Sneider revealed that an actor who was previously attached to the film due to their connection with Damon Lindelof, who was previously writing the film, is no longer set to appear in the movie. And yes, this is what I'll be talking about in just a moment. It's why this article is now relevant. We'll go back to that. Let's finish it out. Whoever that actor was, that person is no longer attached to that project, said Sneider, and mainly because of the story changes, because they threw out Lindelof's script and brought in Stephen Knight, so obviously there were story changes, and so that actor, whoever that was, is no longer attached. Now, let me clarify here that what I am hearing, although I cannot independently verify it, and I would hesitate to criticize Jeff Sneider, perhaps he's correct on this, or perhaps there's just further clarification now, who knows, but my understanding based on sources I have, they're telling me that, in fact, the Damon Lindelof script was not completely thrown out, but rather that Stephen Knight has come in and significantly reworked it, but that Damon Lindelof will be credited in this film with a writing credit, and that major portions of that script are being kept. It may even exist as a skeleton to help guide the entire movie. So we'll see. Sneider went on to discuss the potential start date for production on the Rey Skywalker Star Wars movie, which, by the way, almost certainly now will be pushed back. Every moment that the writer's strike continues likely pushes that farther back, simply because we're going to arrive at the point where the pipeline becomes so burdened that we can't get to these projects like this new Rey movie. So to explain that a little bit, if the writer's strike only went for a week or 2 weeks, then it's not that big of a deal. The writers, perhaps they were coming up with ideas from home, or while they were on the picket line with their goofy little signs attacking poor Jenna Ortega for daring to have her own thoughts on the Wednesday production set. But then they could come back and they could push all of this through. The problem is that when the writer's strike goes on too long, then productions begin to stop. And the longer they are stopped, the longer it will take to finish them out once they restart. And that means that priorities will have to be set once productions begin again. And you can only conclude that stuff like the Rey movie will have to be pushed out as other productions are not finished on time. that means that places, locales, and people will all have to be delayed in coming to the Ray movie. It's a big pain for the entire industry. So the longer this writer's strike goes on, the less likely it is we hit December 2025 for that release date.
Floral, it's time for you to walk the plank.
What? Why?
Because you haven't subscribed to WDW Pro yet. Nor bookmark thatparkplace.com on your web browser to get great articles from great contributors.
What?
All right, so let's take a look now at what was said here. Whoever that actor was, that person is no longer attached to that project, said Snyder. And I think that's true. There was an individual, an actor, who was attached to this. And what I'm hearing is that that individual was going to be brought into the Mandoverse and then through the Mandoverse be introduced as a character of importance, then that character brought into the Ray movie. And if you go way back into my original video where with Star Wars Theory and Lauren Connor, we talked about the, we exclusively revealed the Ray movie before anybody else. What I talked about there was that there was a mystery character that would be introduced in the Mandoverse, and that character potentially would be just as big as Ray, maybe even bigger. And that's the character, that's the actor that we think has been, at least the actor has left. Perhaps the role is eliminated, but we don't know for sure. And you might say, well, why don't you know? And the answer is simple. I don't think Stephen Knight is writing this at the current time for obvious reasons. And that means the script isn't done. And until that script is done, this new version by Stephen Knight, I can't tell you what's going to happen because nobody knows. Not even Stephen Knight likely knows what's going to happen in this movie because Stephen Knight has yet to complete the work that will be done. All right, now we're going to go to a very important interview with the director who's behind the Ray movie, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. And the hits keep coming when it comes to this lady. She is something unique and special, to say the least. I don't know if I like her, dislike her, or anything in between. I just know that she has opinions, and she has connections with people with opinions that I think will further divide the Star Wars community rather than bring it together. But let's hear what she has to say, and we'll dissect it. An interview from the World Economic Forum. That's already going to set off some of you. But here we go.
My greatest asset, to be honest, is that I'm a woman. I mean, you know, many women that come from our part of the world think that it's a disadvantage. I've always thought that being a woman is my greatest asset. I mean, I really can get away with doing a lot of things in Pakistan, getting into places and getting out because I'm a woman.
But you don't play that card, do you?
Of course I play the woman
you
card.
do?
Hell yeah!
All right, so that's going to concern some Star Wars fans, the idea that she plays the woman card. Now, I get that she comes from a place in the world where women are not treated the best and where we would like for them to have more rights and opportunities. And so perhaps that's where some of this sass comes from. And in that case, perhaps it's warranted. But at the same time, if she's going to play the woman card when it comes to Star Wars, after what we have just witnessed with Star Wars, in which the entire franchise has been switched over, right? It's no longer a franchise for men necessarily. The IP is not aimed at the masculine. It's definitely Stargirls. If she plays the woman card and this is all about female empowerment, then I think they'll lose a significant part of the audience, whether that's right or wrong. I'm not going to take a position on whether she should do that or not. I'm simply going to take a financial position that I think it would harm the Ray movie and its opportunity for success.
Yes.
I wanted to hear that.
I mean, you're a South Asian woman. You've got
Of
to play
course.
the woman card. There's a long line of men
Drag.
standing. Stand
That's-
to the front of the line.
that-
How can I stand if there's 100 people standing in line? No. When you can play the woman card,
You will.
You play the woman card, the damsel in distress. I mean, don't I look like a damsel in distress?
The fact that you say that sometimes that you use that card is immensely interesting for me to hear because very few women admit to that.
Well,
Now, what I find interesting about this, number one, if we're going to talk about issues in that part of the world with women, I'd like to take on the very serious issues. And maybe I'm putting too much on this, but you know, there are women in certain parts of the world who are not allowed to be educated, and I'd like to raise our voices for that, rather than using the woman card to cut line. That's just too frivolous for me. But again, they're in a jokey atmosphere, and maybe they're just having fun, right? But I'm not so sure. I think that this lady is espousing sort of a manipulative way of looking at the world, that you put on one mask of femininity when it's needed, and you put on a different for other situations in order to gain access to very less than highly important endeavors, such as cutting line. Who knows? Maybe it's all just a big joke. Let's hope that the Rey movie is not a big joke, and let's hope that Star Wars is not turned into something that follows a manipulative ideology.
You know, the thing is that you've got to play all sides. You know, if I need to stand up and face a man and look at him in the eyes and scare him off a little bit, I do scare Pakistani men off a little bit. That I do, and I enjoy that power.
You like being intimidated?
I enjoy that power that I can scare him, and he kind of takes a back step and then looks away.
Here's something that's interesting to me, and I don't understand this. I don't understand the joy in scaring people. One, I also don't understand why she would be able to scare Pakistani men as opposed to other men. That doesn't make sense to me. Maybe someone can explain this to me. You know, if men have mistreated her at some point, or, you know, whether that be individual men or whether that be men within a culture or society, I can understand, definitely, I can understand that if you're mistreated, that you will enjoy the people who have tormented you being on the opposite side of that, let's say. But for people who have grown past trauma, and who knows, I don't know what trauma she may have or may not have been through, but for people who have grown past trauma and reached a high level of maturity in integrating past experiences, there's not much joy that you should take in scaring others, because that's not a virtue. It's not a virtue to scare people, whether they be adults or whatever. There are times to scare people, but those are very few and far between. Scaring someone is what you do when they're going to harm another and you're out of options. But scaring people for pleasure is extremely odd, and that may speak to her psyche and her motivations in life that maybe are a bit askewed. And I'm not trying to be overly mean or critical of her. This is something we can all learn from, and that's why this video is worth our while. We should all learn that we should be, as best we can, sincere and present the same person to the world that we are on the inside as best we can, because we've integrated ourselves in a virtuous way, a mature way. And then also, we should not take joy in either pain or fear or suffering of others. That leads us down a very dark path. And for those of you who've paid attention to Star Wars, you would know which path that is.
And then if I need to be a woman and be the damsel in distress, then I will be the woman and be the damsel in distress, because we live in countries where you can do both. And I like that. I like the fact that somebody else is going to stand in line and let me cut in and say, please. I like that. Why not?
She seems to take joy in this idea of scaring people. And that's not something that I take joy in. It's not something I suggest any of you take joy in. And I hope that the movie does not portray Rey or any of her other heroes in such a way, because if it does, they won't be much of heroes at all. I don't know how much farther Star Wars can fall, but none of this news gives me great joy, pleasure, or anticipation at what is coming forth. Yet it's all in line with Kathleen Kennedy and her ideas, her concepts. And the buck stops with Kathleen Kennedy. If Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny comes in poorly, if it does not well at the box office, then potentially, perhaps, Kathleen Kennedy will be stepping aside in the future, and we will be seeing a significant alteration or perhaps even a cut of this film. In other words, having it be stopped entirely. Now, I think it's far more likely that Rey hits the big screens, but I don't know that to be sure, because I don't know anything for sure that's in the future. I mean, there are, I highly suspect that I will drive home today and that while on the interstate, I'll be just fine. But you never know. And that's what we all live with. The future is uncertain. So can I say for sure that the Rey movie is coming 1,000%? No, but I'd put it above 90%. Now, whether it will be good or not is far, far less in terms of percentage of it being good. And with people like this behind the helm, I grow more and more worried each day. But let me know what you think. Does this worry you, or do you think this is all just overblown? Perhaps We should not read into it this much. Perhaps a director is not so great that it will affect the writing. Perhaps the writing will be wonderful. Perhaps Mr. Knight is coming in to be the White Knight that saves the Rey movie and much of Star Wars and the legacy of Luke Skywalker. Who knows? Well, folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about that notification bell. I covet your comments, so please drop one down below. I love getting to see what you think. I care about it. I respond often. If you're not yet a member of this channel, consider it. It's only the price of a soda, and you can get all kinds of great exclusive films, clips, videos, thoughts, polls, etc. In fact, we had a video out just today for members that goes over how the entire industry of entertainment may be changing in the near future, breaking down a piece of particular news that is not well suited for the channel at large, but for those who really want to know what's happening in entertainment and culture, it is of utmost importance. All right, that'll do it for us today, everybody. We have a very big video coming out tomorrow. Stay tuned for tomorrow morning. Of course, the Pro Show Live is tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's every Thursday, 5 to 7 Eastern Time, the Pro Show Live. Catch it all, see my friends, hang out with us. I think you'll have a good time. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Make sure to catch the Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.